All right, hello, good afternoon, welcome everyone. I'm assuming a few more are going to trickle in here, but I will do a little bit of housekeeping and introductions here at the top, but if you have any questions, you can submit those. So welcome to Creating Connections webinar with Kristina Holzweiss. My name is Amelia. I am the content strategist here at Demco, and I'm going to be moderating today's webinar. So before I do the introduction and hand this over to Kristina, again, I said you can submit questions that might come up through the question portal. I'm going to be monitoring it, but I won't be interrupting the presentation today. I'm going to hold off until the end and then use any time we have then, just because we don't want to cover something that maybe Kristina is going to be handling later on during the webinar, or repeat questions, things like that. We will be capping today's webinar at 1 hour. So any relevant unanswered questions that we don't have a chance to get to, or if Kristina fills the whole time, I'll be sending her those questions to create a document, a Q&A document that will be sent out with the post-webinar email and accessible on the webinar landing page so that you can read the answers to those questions if they come up. In about a week, everyone that is registered for this webinar, regardless of your attendance or if you have to drop off early, you'll get an email with a link to watch the recording, as well as that QA document and a PDF of the slides. If for any reason you miss that email, the recording and the documents that I mentioned can be found at any time at our Ideas and Inspiration page under webinars. As soon as we finish uploading it, we will also put it on our YouTube channel. And there's lots of other great webinars there, so feel free to go and check out some of the other topics that we've covered in the past. So today's webinar is called Creating Connections. And our guest speaker and school librarian, I'm sure you all know her, you're probably here because of the name, is Kristina Holzweiss. And she's here to discuss the importance of building relationships at the start of the school year to pave the path of success for students. And in this webinar, you guys will explore the techniques for creating connections with students, parents, and school staff to help your library be recognized as an important cornerstone of learning. Kristina Holzweiss is an ed tech librarian living on Long Island, New York. She's a strong advocate for school libraries. She was named 2015's School Librarian of the Year by School Library Journals, a Library Journal Mover and Shaker, and a National School Board 20 to Watch Emerging Education Technology Leader. She's presented at numerous conferences, including ISTE, AASL, ALA, and NYSCATE, as well as at international workshops. She was invited to Washington, D.C. to represent her region during the National Week of Making, and she's the founder of Students of Long Island Maker Expo. She is also a co-author of Hacking School Libraries and the author of multiple children's books. So we're really excited to have her. Thank you so much for joining us, Kristina, and I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much. So welcome, everyone. Whether you are a veteran librarian or a brand new librarian, or even a library aide or administrator or another educator, these are some techniques for creating connections at the beginning of the school year. I just want to let you know that please feel free to reach out to me at any time. There is my website, bunheadwithducttape.com, and I'm also on Twitter at librarian. I have a Facebook group called School Libraries Rock. I have a Canva Librarians group, and I have a group for the School Library Planner. So people who have used the planner in the past or just purchased it this year can give me feedback about the planner so I can make the planner that I partnered with Demco to create even better each and every year, because that's what Creating Connections is all about. So let's discuss. Today's agenda, we're going to discuss why making connections is so important, how to make your library program more visible, ways to get stakeholders involved, and helpful tips to advocate for your school library. So as a school librarian, you might feel very isolated. I know that I sometimes did. Now I'm on a team with other librarians, which is awesome in our high school. But as a school librarian, I felt very isolated on my own when I was a middle school librarian. As a former English teacher, I was part of a team. So all my students had the same math, science, and social studies teachers, and I was the English teacher on the team. And we had time to discuss our students. I could ask the other teachers for their advice. But as a school librarian, no one knows what you do. I know some of the things that you might do, but everyone has different roles in their libraries that depend on what they bring to their library and also the requirements of their administrators and to meet the needs of their students and their staff. So while I may know some of the nitty-gritty as in processing books and curriculum development and programming, I don't know all of the nuances about your library, and most people don't. So even if you have other librarians in your district and you're lucky to have them and you can connect with them, not everyone knows exactly what your library is about and what you need to do to make it the successful library program that it is. So that's why making connections is so important. We don't want to feel like islands. We want to feel connected with one another because we are all better together. So let's discuss why making connections is so important for school librarians, especially out of all other educators. So building connections can help student engagement and motivation. So when you have a library program that fosters creativity and students have an emotional investment, they're more likely to learn, and they're going to be more engaged and more connected to your library program. So as you can see here, I had a Make a Difference bulletin board in my library. And whenever I caught a student making a difference, whether they said thank you to a person, or they helped me doing a project, or they just, were an emotional support for a student, I gave them this little a slip of paper, and I had them fill out, why they make a difference. And if they wanted to publicize it, they could put it on the bulletin board. If they wanted to keep it private, they could just take it home with them. But I want to have a Make a Difference board in my library because I want to give immediate feedback to my students. It didn't have to be a special student of the week or of the month and of the whole school, and it didn't have to be something that it had to be an application. Whenever I caught someone doing the right thing or making a difference in the library, I just gave them the slip of paper and I put that on the board, and that increased student motivation. On the upper right, you see my Techspert team, 3 students from my Techsperts. And my Techspert team was awesome. These kids helped me process books. They helped me unbox new resources that were coming to the library. I had one student who took charge of the 3D printer. Those were my Techsperts. And when they came in, they had the Techspert table, and these were awesome badges that ALA had created years ago. This photo is actually at an ALA website, and these badges said that I'm an expert in, and then you could slide in underneath what you're an expert in. So I had the students write what they were an expert in, whether it be coding or book recommendations or website design, whatever they were experts in, and they were wear that little tag for the day. On the bottom left, you see, and on the bottom right, you see some makerspace activities. So I always wanted to create a place for my students to make a difference. And so those are signs for Habitat for Humanity. My students at the time were in middle school, so they were too young to actually participate in building homes for Habitat for Humanity, but they could all make posters. And those were welcome posters that we had designed to give to families when they when they were brought to their new homes. So that's Habitat for Humanity. And on the bottom right, I had a makerspace activity. I enjoy themed makerspace activities. It promotes social emotional learning. It promotes unity. It promotes understanding. And on the bottom right, you could see a themed makerspace activity that I had in my program during Lunar New Year, and that's in February each year. And the students were making Chinese lanterns for Lunar New Year. So it made students feel, if students did celebrate Lunar New Year, it made them feel that we understood and we accepted them in our, accepted differences in our library. And students who did not celebrate Lunar New Year, came to an understanding of that holiday that was very special to in people's in Asian cultures. So, student in creating connections increases student engagement and motivation. Sorry, I press the button right here. Whoops, I'm going backwards. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, parent involvement. So we always talk about advocacy and having and then talking about the library, but some people think that advocacy is just talking about, let's increase budgets or talking about book challenges and informing the parents and informing the community when times are tough. But advocacy should be all year long. Advocacy is not just talking about problems that we're having, but it's also promoting the library in positive ways. So as you can see here on the top left, we had a book fair at Barnes& and Noble on the top left, and we actually had a whole event. So the music teachers came and they had the band, they had the choir, this was Black History Month, so they had a little mini sketch or a play. We had kids creating crafts. So it was, again, we weren't just raising money for the library through a book fair through Barnes& and Noble, we were increasing parent involvement and community engagement. On the top right, you see a little free library that one of our parents had created, and students donated books that they know were no longer reading from home, and they put it in the little free library. And so when students visited the library, they not only could take books out from our library, they could also take books home to keep or trade in our little free library. On the bottom left is a class. It was we worked with some honor society kids and some English language learners and a toy making club, and we went to visit the Ronald McDonald House through a grant through New York State. It was called Liberty Partnership. And here we have some of our students. We took a group of for our students in this club, Liberty Partnership, and in that group, we had many students donate goods to bring to the Ronald McDonald House. We had the toy making club create toys for the kids made out of wood. You could see some hats that I knitted for babies that were going home. That were very, very small little hats for the babies. And we collected household items. So again, we involved parents with donations, and so they knew that the library was not a place just for books and for resources and databases and computers. A library was a place of connections. A library was a place of unity. A library was a place of community. And on the right-hand side, you see that we have one of our parents found some bar stools at a yard sale, bought the bar stools, and then brought them to the library. We had at our circulation counter, we had 3 bar stools that students can sit at, and while I was working processing books or running reports, they can come sit and they could talk to me at the circulation counter. And so this parent took some vinyl material and they reupholstered the bar stools using that library material. So again, creating connections with your community helps people feel like they are part of it, they have a vested interest in it, and it's not just budget time, it's not just when times are tough, it's when it's any time of the year. It's creating that sense of community and parent involvement. And teacher collaboration. So a very important part of a library program is that teacher collaboration. And I always get the question of, how do you get teachers to collaborate with you? Especially teachers who say they don't have the time, or teachers who've been doing the same style of teaching year after year, and they don't want to get involved, or they don't have the time for it. How do you get them involved? Well, you can think about how to integrate their library resources in the curriculum. Whether the teachers bring their students to the library or not, you can find ways to bring the library to them. So on the top left, you see that I worked with a computer science teacher, and they were working with a makey project. Now, here's the truth. When I went to college, I wanted to be a computer science minor. I took 2 courses of computer science, and that was it. I couldn't, I just did not have the foundation. I didn't have the skills to really go ahead. But fast forward, became a school librarian, learned about Hour of Code, and I eventually became Makey and Raspberry Pi certified. So computers are my passion. So I partnered with a computer science teacher, and because I knew Makey, I was able to work with her to create this hands-on learning unit. And here we have some students who are working with just some scraps and some old calculators and paper and paper clips to find out what is conductive and what isn't conductive. And I created these little test kits that had all these resources in them. And I created an online Wakelet, which is a way that you can curate resources. And all these resources that I created for this unit, and they visited our makerspace for about a month or two to create these hands-on learning projects with the Makey. On the top right, you can see that here's a little menu that I have for our book tasting. It went through the little process. We had a genre review, then a book taste, and the checkout. We use Padlet for students to recommend books to one another. So not only were they quote unquote tasting the books for themselves, they could write down, oh, well, I found this book in my pile. I have the historical fiction pile, and this book I'm interested in taking out. Have you read it too? And they would write little book recommendations. So even if you didn't get enough time to look at one of the books, we had this virtual book recommendation Padlet. And then we had a bookmark. Each student walked out with a bookmark with question stems. So that was a really great connection with our English teachers. On the bottom left, you see that this is a project, another project that we did with the Ronald McDonald House. I had done this project with an English teacher, and we had the students. I had some donations through Donors Choose. I had these mini canvases and paints. So the students researched famous quotes or just, inspirational quotes. They wrote the quote on their canvas, and they drew whatever they wanted to, hearts and stars and squiggles and doodles and whatever they wanted to. And then they recorded inspirational messages on Flip, which was formerly was Flipgrid, and we took the messages and we printed out the QR code, and we put that behind the canvases, and we donated them to the local Ronald McDonald House, so that the students, the children and the family staying there would get pieces of artwork, and they would be able to scan the QR codes and listen and watch these inspirational messages from the student artists themselves. And on the bottom right, as this was a collaborative project that I had worked with our English language learner teacher. I had learned about Moat, which is an extension that you can use, and even an app on your phone that you can add audio to Microsoft. You can add it to Google Docs. You could add it to Google Slides. You could add it to forms, even to emails. You could even layer it onto websites. And if you wanted to, you can create these little Moat audio bites and take QR codes or the links and put it in virtually anything. So you could put it in PowerPoint or Microsoft or anywhere. And so this is a photograph that I put on a Google slide, and this is part of my library. And we created this this identification so the students can learn about the parts of the library and also practice their English skills. So all you have to do is record the soundbite, and you get this little icon, and you place it wherever you want on the image, and then you press it. The students don't have to have Mode installed, only the teacher has to use it, and the students could just press the button, and as you press the button, you hear a short audio. So when you click the lamp, it says, "This is a lamp." When you click the chair, it says, "This is a chair." When you click the table, it says, "This is a table." And you could put virtually anything you want on that. You could use that for library orientation. You can use that for identification. These are just some ideas. But the teacher and I worked on this collaborative project because she wanted her students to not only learn about the library, but to practice their English. So again, creating connections with teachers helps you to create collaborations, and that was really going to make your library program really dynamic and really rich. And community support. So as you can see in this on this slide, we have Flip, which was previously Flipgrid. They came to visit us. So connecting with local community members, connecting with organizations, connecting with ed tech companies. So again, we have Flip visited us in 2000, I believe it was 18. We were on their bus tour. On the top right, we have some of our techsperts. I was able to connect with other donors through Donors Choose, and some of my donors were repeat donors, and so we had to give them photographs of the students using the equipment, and I always had students unboxing because they love to do that. They love to unbox. On the bottom left, you see an image from my event that I founded, Students of Long Island Maker Expo, which was like a maker fair. And this is a local organization that teaches students how to sew. And this is a student learning about the equipment, about the sewing machine. And then I had our local Creative Aviation. They allowed me to have a town hall about the maker movement in their huge auditorium. And so these were some of the people that I reached out to actually speak. So we have librarians from other public libraries. You can see on the bottom, we have my student in the center, who was one of my techsperts who worked on the 3D printer, his friend, local tech companies, principals, and they came and they spoke about the maker movement. Again, when I represent, I'm not representing myself, I'm representing libraries and the library programs. And so anything that I do, I feel like it's a point of advocacy, not just for my library, but for all libraries. And that's where we come up to advocacy. So when stakeholders feel connected, they're more likely to advocate for the importance. So on the top left, you see the manager from Barnes and Noble actually came to visit our students, and these are our students creating stop animation movies with an iPad and a locker shelf, and they just put it on top and they use Play-Doh. So she learned about what our students were doing in our school, so she could run some programs at Barnes and Noble for kids to do. On the right, you see during Hour of Code, we had teachers bringing in their students, and this is a math teacher bringing in her students, and she's learning about Hour of Code. And on the bottom, we see this is a class that I went and I presented at once. After a while, through Donors Choose, like I said, I had repeat donors, and I met a college professor at a local conference, and she really enjoyed what I was doing, and she became one of my donors, and she donated to a lot of my projects that made a difference. So the Habitat for Humanity project, a bookmark project, a sewing project, she donated to those. And to thank her, I visited and I was a guest speaker in her college classes. And this is a college class about leadership. And what I had the students do is I talked about the importance of libraries and the importance of librarians. And I had the students work together, and they created the same balloon cars that we had created at our maker fair, and that is in one of my books. And I just gave them, as many materials as they wanted. I didn't give them directions, and I had them work it out. And I told them how afterwards we discussed how this coming together, this project helped them with their leadership skills, their teamwork skills, their communication. But this was my way to advocate for school libraries, because I wanted them to know school librarians are really, really important people to collaborate with. So if you have any opportunity to speak to teachers, whether it be professional development or in a college class, whatever it is, or even the local Barnes and Noble, always advocating for school libraries. That's my underlying mission. So how can we make our libraries program more visible? How do you make your library program more visible? So here are some ideas. Well, first of all, design interactive displays. So here we have one of my metal bookcases, and what we did was we took the Lego plates where that you build on those plates, and I put on very, very strong magnets, and we put them behind the bookcase, and this little rolling cabinet housed a lot of our makerspace equipment, and the students could write on it with Legos. They can create whatever masterpieces they wanted to, and then they could take them, put them on the table, work on them, and then they could display them onto the back of this rolling cabinet. On the top, you can see that we have, this is created in Canva, and we have I have several of these. If you enjoyed this book, try these out. And I have, this one's on dystopian literature. I have one of it's historical literature, sports, whatever topic that you like, and even ask the students to help you create these Canva templates. This is a Canva template, and if you want, all you have to do is laminate them. You could put them around your library. You could put them in a binder, leave them at your circulation counter so students can get recommendations. And on the bottom right, you see I had a sign, "Welcome to the Libratory," because I really believed our library should be a touching experience, a touch museum. So I would collect all of these antiques and old artifacts from either thrift stores or antique stores. So we see an old sewing machine. There is a typewriter. I had a binding machine. Eventually I got an old phonograph. I had a cassette player. I had this group of girls who loved using the cassette player. I had old cassette tapes that were blank, and they recorded their voices. They were like, "This is amazing." I'm like, "Yeah, I used to do this too. I used to make my own little radio shows using the cassette player." And those of you who are around my age, you will remember mixtapes from the 80s when you would put it in your boom box and try to record the song from the radio before it switched to the next song, before the radio announcer would cut in and comment. So old cameras, whatever I could find, I put in that area. And it would be it's really funny because the teachers, they would come in with their students, and the students would be touching everything, and the teachers would be like, "Don't touch that." I go, "No, no, no, I want you to touch that. I want you to have the experience. I want you to feel these artifacts and see what they are." So designing interactive displays, and have your students help you. Collaborate across the subjects. The World War II Museum in Louisiana is amazing. I don't know if they have this program anymore because of COVID, but years ago they had a locker. It was a locker that they would loan out. It was a metal box, and I think they only charged for shipping. And in this metal box, they gave you white gloves so you could handle the artifacts like a museum curator. And they would have all these artifacts from World War II, So they would have old license plates, they would have old yearbooks, they would have, there was actually a bottle of sand from Iwo Jima, dolls, toys, ration books, all of these things, and they would send documentation about it. So here I am with the students with this basically a traveling museum, and showing them all the pieces. So if we couldn't get to, from New York, it's quite far to get to the World War II Museum, I brought it to them. So, and this is, again, as a librarian, you're trying to make these connections and learn about organizations and nonprofits and programs that your teachers do not have the time to do. So you're always out there searching for these things, and ask people, what have you used? Go on Facebook, go on TikTok, or Instagram, Twitter, whatever you're going to use in social media, or even word of mouth. What have you used in your library? On the top right, we see that I collaborated with our special education life skills kids, our assistive technology professional, our speech and language teachers, and the students designed a sensory walk. So they had hopscotch, they had different animals that you would, this one's twist on the turtles. So you actually walk on the turtles and you would twist. There's wall push-ups. And we had students over the years design using the Cricut Design Studio. They emailed the administrators of the elementary schools. They figured out how much vinyl would be for each piece, and they asked them, would you like to, purchase one of the, purchase the vinyl, and we cut it for you. And then we have, you see that last year we actually had a student cut out the designs, and then we had some teachers help to install it. So again, think beyond the teachers of the typical core classes. Think of the special area teachers, think about the school counselors, think about the school psychologist, the speech and language, assistive technology. Think about everyone and how they can help, and how you could help them and how they can help their students with your resources. On the bottom left, again, you see a math teacher learning about coding, and that was called Bitsbox. They were actually typing in the code. And on the bottom right, through Donors Choose, I had created a project, actually a number of projects, and we were able to acquire 30 breakout EDU boxes, 30 of them. And so you figure if there were 5, you may need 5 or 6 breakout EDU boxes per class. So you could have multiple classes using them at one time, and we outfitted each one with the directions, with QR codes, with all the instructions, the pieces that you need, the fluorescent light, the locks, whatever you needed. And this I sent out, and whoever wanted to could borrow them, and they would just, collect everything, put it back in the box. We would process it back in the library. And here you can see that this is a math class that created a breakout EDU activity and then use our materials. So again, think about ways that you can bring the resources to your teachers to collaborate across projects that you never even thought you would be able to. And host events. So again, I mentioned to you that Maker Expo, and on the top left, we have a family that visited the Maker Expo. And again, whenever I create an event, you always try to promote, it's a library sponsored event. So whenever I advertise that at Maker Expo, I explain, I'm a school librarian, this was a vision of mine. And if you want to do other things like this, go to your local public library or school library. On the top right, we had a decorate a door contest. So during our Scholastic Book Fair, we had everyone in the school have their door decorated by the students in their class. So that could be the homeroom, advisory class, it could be the entire class during the day. And this is the principal's door, actually, and this is Fish in a Tree. And you could have any theme that you wanted. And so we had representatives from Scholastic, because we have a local distribution center, and they came and they chose a winner. And then we had a popular vote, which was a Google form, and teachers and students could vote on that one. And so we had 2 groups that won. And for that book fair, that was not really a fundraising book fair. That was a promoting summer reading book fair. And we took the money that we received from that book fair and we divided it amongst the winners, and then we bought a few things for the library. So that was really a promotion. So each of the students in those 2 classes won a $10 coupon, and the teacher as well, and they can come to the book fair and they can purchase what they wanted to. So they really like that. Funny enough, the art teacher won the popular vote, and the science teacher won the Scholastic vote that year. It wasn't the English teachers, and I decorated my door, but I was not a winner either. On the bottom left, you can see that it's almost like a Comic-Con or cosplay, and that is by the Sewanaka School District, and they put on this activity where students could talk about their favorite, superheroes or anime, or what have you, and they had this is a cosplay costume contest. And on the bottom right, one of our popular activities at our slime was our trash to fashion show. And you don't even have to put on a big event to do that. You could just have the trash to fashion show on its own. And we were collecting Dorito bags and the Capri Sun bags and just anything that we could find. And the students created these beautiful, beautiful works of art. You can see this beautiful queen and her court, and everything that they create. That whole gown is created from basically, I think he has Capri Sun bags and Dorito bags. It really shows sustainability. It really shows how you can create something with not a lot of money, and anyone can participate in that. So that's a really fun event to do. And showcase the success stories in your library. Those little anecdotes, the little stories that happen that not many people know about. So on the top left, you see a student using some beads and some lanyard. And he wasn't using, there's the binary bracelets. I said, "Are you writing out your name with the binary bracelet?" He's like, "No, I'm writing out my grandmother's name in binary language." And if you can go on Hour of Code, they have binary language, and it's just, black and white dots. You can use red and blue beads, whatever you like. Just use two contrasting colors. And the student was creating this bracelet because his grandmother was in the hospital. So he was making this bracelet with using computer programming code. He was creating this bracelet for his grandmother. On the top right, you can see this class that I taught last year. It was news production, and it invited students of all abilities and all grade levels. And we recorded and we edited wrote a weekly show that we put on Friday mornings. It was the morning announcements. On the bottom left, sponsored by Flipgrid, was their very first virtual event, and this was with a scientist in the Antarctica, and we met with her. So anytime you Skype with an artist, or you Google Meet with an author, show those success stories. Tell what happens in your library. And on the bottom right, you see our textperts again, and I brought them to a local conference, and they actually taught teachers there at the local conference. So share those anecdotes, those success stories. It's not always about the circulation statistics or how many teachers you collaborated with or the how many books that you processed. It's those little stories, those anecdotes that really capture the essence of your library program. And promote a digital presence. So on the top left, you could see there's a QR code. I created a handbook that you could actually use. It's through Book Creator, and it is a library handbook. So it is for you to use, and it has different pages, and it shows you what your mission statement is. It talks about either makerspace activities, talks about book recommendations, the typical information that you need, like what hours are open, how long do you circulate books for, how many books students are allowed to use. And you can use that QR code and you can create your own digital handbook through Book Creator. On the top right, I had used Edmodo for a number of years because I had learned about that from ISTE, and I really enjoyed it, but my teachers were not on board with it. This was before Google Classroom, so not many teachers were using a lot of technology, and getting the kids on board to use Edmodo was great, but getting the teachers on board was not as easy. So when we started using Google products, I had a website, but not many students were visiting the website. I felt like I kept updating it, but it wasn't really used as much as I wanted it to. So I said one day, well, you know what? I'm just going to create a Google Classroom. So I created a Google Classroom of research tools, and I would update it. And since students were in other Google Classrooms, it would come up on their dashboard. So again, sometimes you may want to use a tool like Edmodo, but your students and your teachers are not ready for it. So sometimes you need to wait until they're ready and see what they're using and then just jump on that bandwagon. And so I turn off the comment, the comment feature, and I just push that research information through this Google Classroom. And as you can see, we had 800 students in that Google Classroom. I use Flipgrid quite often to promote a digital presence. My tech experts would go around and they would video, video record students on the iPad or even on the Chromebook using, the library resources. And so we had a really robust Flipgrid collection of all these videos. And here you can also see that my student tech experts had a Twitter account. Now, they didn't know the username or password for it. I had it on our Techspert designated iPad, and that one we held in the back room. And whenever I wanted the students to tweet something out, I would give them the iPad. And I said, go around the library, see what's going on. Again, you need to check that, students are not on the do not photograph list. That is your responsibility as a librarian, and make sure things are appropriate. But I would have students, if first they would find out those things, they would find out that information. They would ask the students, can I photograph you? You always ask permission. Then they would write the tweet, they would take the photograph, bring it to me, and then I would look at it. I would look up, find out the student's name, who they photographed. I would look up that student on the do not photograph list, make sure the tweet was appropriate, and then I let them press the send button. So they never knew what the username and password were, and I moderated everything, but they were empowered to share about our library through social media. Now, how can we get our stakeholders involved? Well, parent events. So our library, well, actually our school hosted one time a parent camp. So it was like an egg camp for parents. And so we had a 3D printer in our library. So I said, why don't I connect with the technology teacher? And we invited parents to come to the library to learn about the 3D printer from our technology teacher, which was really good because they learned it advocated for the library, it advocated for technology, and it showed the parents a window into what their students were learning. Volunteer opportunities. So again, you see our Maker Expo at the top. We invited the Girl Scouts. We had some Girl Scouts in our school, and they invited their friends, and they had their own table at our Maker Expo. We also had an automuseum years ago in a local county, and we invite our Liberty Partnership students. We went there, and the people there at the automuseum volunteered their time to show about how the shop works and showed us really old cars. So they had one of the DeLoreans from Back to the Future. They had the original Batman car. They had Speed Racer. So that was really fun. And on the bottom right, you could see when I packed up my library for our new carpet, you can't do that alone. So you really need to connect with people. And so I had people come in and help volunteer to help pack up the boxes of books, and I labeled them, and we were able to organize them because you just can't do all of that alone. And then an advisory committee. So you could see that we have some students at our local Scholastic Book Fair who actually help decide some of the books that we were going to use our dollars for, so that we could add them to our library shelves. So that was part of the student advisory committee. And here we have an English language learner teacher and her student, and I was showing her some of the resources that would be valuable to teach her students coding and to get her feedback on that. So always connecting with students, parents, teachers, administrators, even community members, their advice about what we could bring into the library to help our students. And feedback channels. Create book recommendation forms. Here you can see we have that little moat, that little purple moat display, and I created this book recommendation form so students could not only write their answer, but they could actually speak the answer. So students with limited mobility or students who maybe English is not their first language can actually record their voice. So it is equitable. And what are some helpful tips to advocate for your school libraries? So let me just go right here. So data-driven advocacy, show those numbers. So here this is a school library value calculator that was by the Massachusetts Library Association, which I love because whenever you put in a number, it would actually calculate the value for you. I didn't have the ability to create one like that, so I created this on Canva and I crowdsourced it. I asked people what we should put as library services, and so you see questions answered, relationships developed, caring citizens, reading enjoyed, and obviously the grand total. All of those things together make your school library priceless. On the top right, we had kids plug into the same CD player. We had CDs and they would listen to audiobooks together and actually read the book. So again, during the Scholastic Book Fair, I would try to get a number of books that the kids enjoyed and try to find the audiobook that matched. And the kids could come and create their own little book club. And on the bottom, you can see the students with their pedals. They're cycling, they're cycling as they're reading. So it's not just data as in numbers, as in, again, circulation, weeding, things like that. It's also about the stories behind that data that make a difference. Engage in professional development. I highly recommend joining your local chapter for your library association, American Association for School Librarians. We had an egg camp, cardigan camp, which we'll have another one coming up soon. We started out at our local public library, but it is now virtual. We had to make it virtual because of COVID, but now we like it virtual because our egg camp, cardigan camp takes place during one day, and it's 24 hours long, and it is international, and it is free. So anyone can sign up to a 10 egg camp, cardigan camp, and even present. So it starts at midnight and it ends at midnight. It's a 24-hour virtual egg camp, and that I'll be sending out information about that soon. On the bottom, you can see that I partnered with school counselors for Counselors for Computing, and we had a webinar about building partnerships with school counselors and librarians. So again, don't just think about the core classes, think about those other resources out there, those other professionals out there who also might feel as isolated as you are, and connect with them. And here we have our Digital Librarian Survival Toolkit, which is a crowdsourced a resource that we created through Book Creator, and it's about 250 pages written by 35 plus school librarians all around the nation about different activities, different ideas about egg camps, about using data, about Bitmojis, anything you could even think about for school libraries. And you could scan that QR code as well, and you could access this free resource that we crowdsourced. And collaborate with administrators. So you can see on the top right, this our Scholastic representatives came to visit, and there is my principal on the right. And so again, collaborate with administrators, invite them into your library, celebrate reading, celebrate community, celebrate the library. On the bottom right, you can see this is an administrator who invited his teachers to come visit our library. His technology teachers, in fact, not English teachers, they visited a different day, but these are technology teachers learning about our makerspace. So again, making those connections with your administration in your district and also in other districts. And advocate regularly. Always be advocating. So on the top left, you can create a newsletter through Wakelet. You can create a newsletter through Padlet, S'more, whatever you want to use, but create a library newsletter. Maybe share that out maybe once a month at first, and then if you have more information, maybe once a week, whatever fits your schedule and is best for you. On the top right, that was me presenting ISTE about libraries transforming learning. So anytime that I can share with people who maybe not be librarians, I like to also present at conferences, math conferences, social studies, English, technology, science, anything, and advocating for school libraries. And here again, I was inviting just teachers from other districts to learn about our makerspace. And I had an open house in our library, and I showed them around. Again, this was many years ago. This was 2015. So this was at the very beginning. Not many libraries had maker spaces, and mine was one of the very first ones in the area. So I invited people in. Connect with other libraries, connect with other librarians, see if you can share some resources, see maybe if you can borrow a robot or share some information with someone else. And this way you can see what they have and you can decide whether you want to purchase it or not. And through this, you can advocate not only to people in your district, but up beyond your district, and even in conferences to people around the world. And here are ways that you can actually make connections with the Demco School Library Planner. So if you're thinking about purchasing a school library planner, or you already have one, here are some features in the planner that help you make connections. There's a monthly infographic where you can write down your circulation, you can write down who you collaborated with, your displays. There's a monthly spread of special days. So each month has a special days. It has, special events to celebrate. And so you could talk about different holidays. You could talk about just fun things like, ice cream day. Those are ways you can make connections with students and faculty. There are weekly spreads. So every weekly spread has a quote and it has your win for the week. And so when you start writing those things down and you start thinking, oh, wow, this is something I could use. I can maybe give the quote of the week. I can give that to the principal and they can make an announcement on Fridays, or I make that part of my newsletter, or I can give that to the English teacher, or maybe I could put that in my email. Maybe send out the quotes that you see each week, maybe send that out to your faculty. There are children's literature awards, and not just the typical ones. There's a whole spread about very inclusive literature awards around the world. So if you're looking to create a very diverse and rich collection, you can look at those awards. There's a needs assessment form, so you can really dive deep and see what your library program already has and what you need. There's an action plan, goals and objectives form. There's a curriculum mapping form, so you can visit, you can speak to other teachers in other disciplines or visit them during the department meetings and write down what they're teaching at different times of the year. There's a vendors form, so you can write down the information of vendors who call you or email you. And there are lists of personal reflections and professional reflections, just questions for you to ponder and think about during, and then you can share them with even other educators that don't have to be library related. So here are 10 ways that you can make connections with the Demco school library planner. So some of the, I know I've spoken really quick, but some of the takeaways I'm thinking, as a library leader, your role is pivotal in guiding the transformation of the library into an indispensable and celebrated resource within your educational community. You are a library leader, and that is your role, and you need to really take on that role and understand that you need to explain how important and show how important the library is. Takeaway number 2, the process of making connections, increasing visibility, involving stakeholders, and advocating for your school library is ongoing. It's not a one and done. It doesn't take place over one day. It takes place over time. It's a commitment, and you can show over time that it's an integral part of the educational ecosystem in your school. And you can create a thriving and impactful library program that enhances student learning and contributes to the overall success of the school community. The library is so unique because everyone is welcome, and what you do in your library, the books that you put on your shelves, the programs that you promote, the collaborations that you make, affect every single student, no matter what their abilities are, no matter what grade level, no matter what the nationality, whatever their religious background, their gender identity, everyone is welcome. And that is not just your students, but it is also your faculty. And that is the largest classroom of the entire school. So please stay connected. Here's my website. Here's my Twitter handle. If you would like to have messages from Remind, you can enter number 81010 and text the message at Connect Ed, and you'll get weekly or bi-weekly messages of inspiration and little tips and tricks through Remind. And again, through Facebook, we have the School Library Planner community, the School Libraries Rock community, and the Canva Librarians group. So I hope you stay connected, not just with me, but other librarians all over the world. Thank you so much for your gift of time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristina. That was chock full of ideas. And obviously very thorough. We didn't have any questions come in for you to answer. So I think people are still processing what will fit best into their library or their school and what will work for them, because I think you had a really great range of suggestions and ideas. I think that was fantastic. So if nobody's going to pop in any questions here in the last couple minutes, we will end this recording. But just as a reminder, it does take us a few days up to a week to be able to turn around that recording and get it updated on the landing page. We will do that. We're just getting some comments thanking you and saying great presentation. So we'll get that updated. You will get an email, but if you, for any reason, don't see the email or it goes into your junk mail or whatever, it will be available on the landing page for our webinars on our ideas and inspiration. You can access it without having the email handy. It will also get loaded to our YouTube channel along with all of our other great webinars. So again, thank you so much for your time, Kristina. And I know you're in the last day before you start your conferences, but students will be back soon. So wishing you and everyone else on this call that is braving the new school year, a good school year, and good luck.
Good luck, everyone. We are better together, and please, let's all stay connected.
Thank you so much.